What is the most wholesome thing you have seen? My mom is a piano teacher and was shopping in a music store. A 10-year-old kid came in wanting to buy his first musical instrument, particularly a ukulele, so the clerk showed him some where the entry level was about $65. He ran back outside to his mom waiting in the car, then came back in and asked what is the cheapest musical instrument you have, and the clerk started showing him a $3 kazoo. Overhearing this made my mom sad, so she went over and asked the kid if he really wanted a ukulele and would promise to practice and learn it. Hooked him up with the instrument, a beginner book, picks, etc. When she left the store, the kid and his mom both waited to give her a hug. When my youngest brother was about 8 or 9, he's 12 now, he came home with a Student of the Month paper in his folder. He heard that the school custodian recently had come back from having back surgery, so after lunch he gathered a few of his buddies and they swept the cafeteria to give the custodian a break. He was so humble about it too. He didn't care that he got noticed. I just remember being so proud and crying a bit because although I knew he is a good nugget, I just didn't expect him to go out of his way at such a young age and to get his buddies to follow. Makes my heart happy. In my small town, there is an older guy on my way home from work who wears the biggest smile and stands on his porch while waving to all the traffic. I always wave back. The sad thing is he lives in a super rough area, and kids and teenagers regularly make fun of him and tease him while shouting slurs at him. He just smiles through all this, and one time I honked at him while waving, and the next day he came up to my car when I was at a stoplight and gave me flowers. I always honk and wave on my way home from work. You are a good person. Thank you for taking the time to appreciate him. A few years ago, I was on my way to catch the bus when a middle-aged woman called me from behind a newspaper stand. She pointed to the bus stop, 1 block down, where a guy was standing holding something. She said he was her son, who just got out of jail after serving time for dealing drugs, and today was his first day trying to make an honest life. He had baked some traditional pastries himself and was trying to sell it on the bus stop, and she wanted to make sure things went right for him on his first day so he would not feel tempted to go back on selling drugs. Then she put some money on my hand, asked me if I could buy some pastry, and obviously not tell him she was there. At the stop, I saw the guy, probably in his mid-30s, with this little table of pastries. I bought 3, we chatted a little bit, and 1 minute later my bus arrived and I left. It always makes me emotional and warm inside to think how pure a mother's love can be. At a concert I saw a buddy walking with his friend who was blind and also somewhat physically disabled. I overheard him telling his blind friend, "Oh man, I was so smashed last night. I couldn't walk or see nothing. Thank God for you and your cane. You were steering us everywhere like a champ. I would have been helpless without you." It was really so heartwarming, and you could see how much it meant to his friend to be told how he was the helper, not the person being helped. I'm assuming he was being a little hyperbolic, but the amount of joy I saw brought to his friend's face from his kind words was so heartwarming. I was sitting in a bar having a beer after work when this guy comes in and orders some shots. After the first couple, he starts low-key crying. A semi-regular old man sitting near him asked what was up. Turns out his girlfriend split up with him and he wasn't taking it well. Old man asks to join him for a drink. New guy agrees. This old man, named Keith, always drank 2 beers, paid, and left. Anyways, they sat there and got absolutely shithammered drunk. They tried every liquor in the place and really tied one on. Keith was going on and on about how he hasn't let loose since he was stationed on Okinawa. By this point, new guy has completely forgotten about his ex-girlfriend. They both made each other's evening. Next time I saw Keith, I asked him how the night went. He said he hadn't had a hangover like that since Okinawa. The new guy became a semi-regular and joined our little bar family. He eventually hooked up with a new girl, and I believe they're still seeing each other. Unfortunately he moved, so I haven't seen him in like 6 months. I have 2 nieces. At little one's birthday her friend gave her 2 unicorn toys. She immediately looks at big sis with a huge smile. "Look big sis, this one for you. We can both play." She was genuinely so excited to play unicorns with her sister, and it never even occurred to her that T didn't need to give one to her. My heart grew 3 sizes that day. What a lovely child. I was working at a school just down the road from my 9-year-old daughter's school. Every day she walked from my school to hers, having to cross the street on her way. I could watch her out the window for most of her walk, and she always stopped and chatted with the old man who was the crossing guard. She is such a friendly kid. One day, it was time for her to walk over to school when it started pouring outside. I hadn't anticipated the rain, so I had no umbrella for her and felt terrible. We zipped up her coat and put up her hood, hoping she wouldn't arrive at school soaking wet. When she got to the crossing guard, I watched him hand her his own umbrella and send her on her way. What a kind man. On her way back after school, she brought it back to him. The next day we made him some brownies. Well, I didn't see this event. I actually experienced it, so I hope it counts. Toward the end of my senior year of high school, the teachers did this activity where everyone stuck some sort white laminate paper or cardboard or something to their back. Then we all walked around and wrote on people's backs. You know, nice things, funny things, etc. Everyone actually liked it and was kind of messing around. I wrote something silly, like a running butt joke, on math teacher. Then she in turn wrote on mine. She was taking a while and jokingly said something like, "You writing a novel?" Christ, she just sort of laughed and walked away when she was done. The time came to remove it and read what people wrote. I saw the part where my math teacher wrote. I remember that moment. While I was reading it, my silly mood instantly dropped and it was like the world got quiet around me. Just some background. At the time, I was struggling at home with my mother. She was a victim of child abuse, violent spousal abuse, and rape. As you can imagine, not stable. Our relationship was dysfunctional. I was reaching a point where all the emotional stuff she dumped on me was taking a toll. I was depressed, starting cutting myself, and felt worthless. It was like she didn't like me or want me. Plus, my dad disowned me, straight up over the phone, when I was 13. So I really didn't feel wanted by anyone. So I read what my math teacher, my favorite teacher, wrote. It was about how great a person I am, and to always remain sweet and kind. She then said, "If Max could turn out like you, I'd be the happiest mother in the world." Max was her goddamn 2-year-old son. I'm some black Hispanic nobody living in Washington Heights, and she's this educated, attractive white lady with a blonde kid. That crap hit my chest so hard. Like, it made me think, maybe I am a son somebody would actually want. I just stared at her across the two while she was doing something for else. I never said anything to her, but I saved that strip of paper in my wallet for a long time. I remember the day I lost it. I was devastated. That woman probably saved me life with that small gesture. One of those little things that lightened up my life just enough to make it a little further. It made me feel wanted, and I would, pathetically, fantasize about being her son. 18 years later, and I'm finally in a good place, and I will never forget Mrs. Mueller. Hey, I lived in Washington Heights for years and years, and I'm a white lady, and I can tell for sure that you are not, and never have been, a nobody. I'm so glad that someone made you see that, and I only hope I can, and have, done that for some of the amazing young people I've worked with. I'm a record producer. On a particular song, the client wanted a child's voice to open it, so the bassist's 10-year-old son came and recorded a vocal part. Once we rapped, the singer said to the kid, "Musicians get paid," and he handed the kid a £20 note. The bassist then did the same. A small gesture maybe, but in our world making a living is hard, and it was amazing to see professionals showing how it ought to be. One Christmas season I saw a young woman, late teens or early 20s, walking through an IKEA picking up things in the huge marketplace area, taking a picture of them, putting them back, and moving on. She was obviously thinking intently about gifts, but I was confused. Was she making a wish list or something? An employee saw this and asked if they could help her find something. She says, "Oh, no thank you. I'm helping my dad Christmas shop. He works really hard and has very little time. Plus when he gets off work his brain is just fried. So every year when I'm on break I go around to a bunch of stores and take pictures of things I think my mom would really like. Then I'll show them to him at home. We talk about them and he picks them out. Then I go back and get them. It's the least I can do for him. Plus it's kinda become our little secret Christmas tradition. Mom has no idea." Oh man. I saw your username and it opened with one Christmas season and I thought yes, here we go. The old man shoveling snow story from Home Alone. But alas, it was not to be. I forgot a plate for the waffle I was making in the machine at college and I went sprinting across the dining commons to get one because the timer was about to go off and I ran straight toward the plates and this guy was standing there and his immediate gut reaction was to open his arms and hug me. I have no idea who he was and the waffle didn't burn. There's a couple who look like they have to be in their 80s I see almost every Saturday morning when I go to the mall to run my errands. They walk around together holding hands. Old people holding hands kills me. I have to remember not to let it show that I could almost cry just seeing that. Yesterday at work my boss' 5-year-old daughter was drawing a picture for me and said this is you, a princess, and I thought my heart would combust because that was just so sweet. She proceeded to make a little collection of drawings, which she folded into a book and gave it to me. It was all hearts and rainbows. That was just absolutely wholesome and made me appreciate little kids. Made my day, to be honest. That is so sweet. I am a kindergarten instructional assistant and the kids give me so many pictures during the year. I hang them all over my desk and save them at the end of the year in my file cabinet. It makes me smile to look back through them. In Austin, Texas, my family and I went to a breakfast place. The food was good. The waiters and waitresses were amazing. But they messed up our order. They were short on staff, apparently. Someone had either quit or got fired, and another person had called out that day, so it was only a few people, and it also happened to be one of the busiest times of the week. So, my mother went to go to the bathroom, and when she came out, she noticed our waitress standing at the corner. She was about to cry, or was already crying. I had been waiting and looking out for her the whole time, so I was able to see this. My mother noticed her high stress levels and asked if she had wanted a hug. The waitress nodded and said yay. My mom opened her arms and brought the waitress into a hug to comfort her. And once the waitress had calmed down enough, my mother came back to the table after making sure she was alright and told us what happened. I feel lucky to have my mother in my life. I love her so much. Oh my god, I'm crying. I miss my mom. She's in heaven. Please hug your beautiful mom from me. Thank you so much for sharing, dear. My last week of high school, our lunch lady gave out small gifts to some of the seniors. Just the kids that took the time to chat with her that she got to know more personally. I received a sketchbook with a sweet good luck note in it. I was always in art club and was going to school for fine arts. So she took the time to get all of us a gift that was specific to us. This lady saw hundreds of kids a day and still took the effort to get to know us. Lunch ladies are the best. I bonded with one in my high school and she would always tell me about her day and was always excited to see me. She was like a really cool aunt. Yesterday, I witnessed a young student experience the emotional quality of finding joy in someone else's personal accomplishment. One of the kids in my class was talking to one of our new kids. It came up in conversation that the new kid's shoes didn't fit and made his feet hurt. The boys also realized that they wear the same size shoes. The next day the OG kiddo comes in with a pair of Jordans he never wears for the new kid to have and a note from his mom saying it was okay. It was one of the most precious things I've ever seen. Kids sharing and being selfless always warms my heart. That's exactly how I want my kids to act one day. I was on what I call a rumpled suit flight. One of those flights on a Friday at 6 from NY to DC where most of the flight consists of business people in suits drinking $14 double whiskers. A fellow rumpled suit sat across the aisle from me next to a mother and her kid. When she could, the kid brought down her tray table and a coloring book and started coloring. I didn't hear what was said, but at some point the kid handed the rumpled suit a coloring book and they spent the remainder of the flight coloring and chatting. I was kinda like, I want to color too. A little boy at the airport kept trying to climb over a concrete divider that had active traffic on the other side. His mom was loaded with luggage and kept trying to stop him, but didn't have free hands. My brother-in-law walked up and said, "Hey kid, there's a rule here. You have to keep one foot on the ground at all times. Look around. Everyone has at least one foot on the ground." The kid kept trying to climb, but with one foot firmly glued to the ground he wasn't in danger anymore. Such a creative and wholesome way to let the kid keep playing while keeping him safe. I'm so using in the future. Thanks for that. Wasn't me but my grandfather who was in the military told me a story on how his friend in Vietnam made food, toys, and helped this community from the Viet Cong, pushing the community down south more and more until he was shot twice in the chest and once in the head. My grandfather took his friend's dog tags to give back to his family. After his family refused them back, he kept them, still has them to this day. I had a teacher in high school who had a reputation as being the super tough, mean, older African American lady. She taught health class. There was a mandatory CPR class that we had to pay for, and there was no way I could pay for anything in those days. CPR day came, and she told me to go with the other students. I gave her a confused look, to which she replied, "You're good, baby," and she had paid for me. Later in the year, I fell asleep in her class. It was a home game day, basketball, and she told me to lay back down after the bell had rung. It was the last period of the day. She told me she'd wake me up before I had to report to the gym. She dimmed the lights and played some light jazz while she did her work at the computer. I hadn't been sleeping well at home, and I'm guessing she knew. I woke up when she brought the lights back up and she handed me one of her cup of soups she had warmed up. We never really spoke much, but she had my back and I made sure she knew I had hers. The most wholesome. On senior night, they introduce the players and say some stuff about Em as they walk to center court, typically with parents arm in arm. When it was almost my time to walk, she saw that I was alone. Bless her heart, she about fell down from her seat running towards me. She put her arm through mine and just looked forward, chin up, proud as heck as they read my stats, grades, etc. I remember that walk and how I wish I had a picture or recording from that day showing how big I must have been smiling. My friends' mothers had tears in their eyes. They made sure to invite me to dinner with them after the game, and I made sure it was okay that I brought my teacher. She politely declined and just told me she was proud of me. After I had graduated and was a bit better on my feet, I returned to visit her. It was honestly the only thing that could get me back in that place. Each time I'd bring flowers and or food and made sure to do it in front of students and made sure they knew to respect her. What a great story. The graduation part is incredibly sweet. A friend and I were talking and she said crap in front of the kid of another friend. I dismissed it by saying, "Hey, she probably knows worse." We asked what was the worst word she knows. She very carefully looked around just in case her parents were around and whispered, "Selfish." Geez. I asked my 6-year-old son what was the worst word he knew. He responded that would probably be C. I gifted a used electric wheelchair to a family who couldn't afford one. The kid, maybe 14 years old, was kinda grumpy looking when he arrived. Didn't say much. Once we got him in the chair and he was zooming around, he was all smiles. His mother was also super happy. I heard the next day he told his sister to clear off the driveway so he could practice with it, and by the weekend he had gone to a fair. Oh man. I read that last bit as, and by the weekend, he had gone too far. When my youngest was 2/3, he slept in bed with me. I woke up one night to him not there. I panicked and looked around. He was laying and sleeping cuddled next to my oldest son. This is so sweet. Usually older children don't like being with the younger ones. So, this is so cute. Source: I am the oldest sibling. My oldest son. He was just getting to where he could sit up well and bend over, sit back up all on his own. My wife was in the shower. I had him on the bed. I noticed he started pulling at a pillow, so I pulled it over in front of him. He laid face down on it for a second. I thought, wow, he must be tired, and just before I grabbed him he sat back up and smiled the biggest gummy grin ever. Then he did it again. And again, then it suddenly hit me. He is playing peekaboo, so he did it another time, and when he sat up I said peekaboo and he laughed and smiled. I am a fairly rigid guy that doesn't get emotional or worked up about much, but that broke me down and lifted my spirits all at the same time. That is completely precious. It sounds like you and the baby have some pretty good communication skills going on already. When I was, like, 11, Dad was driving us to a gathering at my grandma's. There was a woman pulled over on the side of the road. Dad asked if they needed help. She said she'd run out of gas. Dad told her he would get some. So we go into a gas station. Dad explains the situation to the cashier and is prepared to buy a can of gas. There's this other customer that looks like a biker. Big dude with tattoos and piercings, who tells dad he has gas at his house and tells us to get in our cars and follow him. His wife and young son were in the front yard. Turned out this was his sister's house. The guy had fled a hurricane with his family. Nevertheless, he insisted on giving us the gas for free. That's very kind. We ran out of fuel on a family holiday, but we weren't that far from the next town, so my dad gets a jerrycan and starts walking. He returned with a full can in the back of a ute driven by some young men who had picked him up, driven him to the service station and driven him back to us even though it was out of their way. There was this dog that would always lay in front of the house on the end of the street. I always had to walk by him in order to get to school. One day there was this group of kids walking home from school and they were ahead of me. I see them go up to the dog, open up their bag, and just dump a bunch of tennis balls next to the dog. As I walked past them, I saw they were petting the dog. Oh good. I was terrified this was going to lead to I had to rescue the dog from these kids hurting it and I adopted him. I always get the shivers when I see a very dedicated parent. A few months ago I was on the train on my way to work when a mother entered with her approximately 10-year-old daughter, who was in a wheelchair. The girl would do nothing but talk, ask questions and narrate everything she did, leaving almost no chance for anyone, her mother, to participate in the conversation. I felt bad for the child, because it seemed as it was impossible for her to keep a thought to herself. Yet whatever she said ended up as a monologue. Her mother had very calm, pleasant and patient vibes. Not once did she judge or interrupt her daughter. While I was present, whenever her daughter asked a question, she would answer it, not getting irritated by the fact that the girl would continue talking. Maybe she was listening after all. At times, the mother would encourage her daughter to elaborate certain thoughts and sometimes the girl did. The kid sounds a lot like me when I was younger. I would talk non-stop and so fast no one could possibly keep up. But family encouraged me to celebrate on ideas and pretty much allowed me to solve my problems or questions on my own. Led me to what I consider a pretty great adulthood, although I rarely speak anywhere near that much anymore. I was at a movie theater with my family. We were in line at the concession stand. I was about 15 at the time. Across the lobby, I see an elderly couple sitting on a bench together waiting for whatever they're waiting for. The man is a stout fellow with a large white beard. Imagine Santa Claus. His wife also has white hair and is wearing nice clothes. Imagine Mrs. Claus. In walks a family, a mother, a father, and 2 children, a son and a daughter. Both of these children are clearly special needs. The boy appears to be about 10 while the girl is about 17 or so. The girl and her family are waiting just a few feet behind us when the girl notices the elderly couple sitting on the bench. More specifically, the elderly man. She blurts out in excitement, "Are you Santa Claus?" The man smiles at his wife, then back at the girl, and informs her that he is indeed Santa Claus. The girl rushes over eager to give the man she believes to be Santa a hug, followed by her brother. The father takes a picture of Santa, Mrs. Claus, and his 2 children. After this, Santa takes out his wallet and pulls out an autographed picture of Santa from it, hands it to the girl who shrieks with excitement and goes on her merry way back to the concessions line. 10 years later, I've never forgotten it, never will. My grandfather is a professional Santa Claus and I love when kids see him in the wild. Was headed to Oakland from San Francisco through the tube. Trains packed as always. People on BART are good about public transit etiquette in general during commute hours, so nobody's talking or listening to music or anything. When we leave the tube onto the viaduct over the port, one guy answers his phone. "Hello. Yep. Oh my god. What hospital? Okay, I'll be there as soon as I can." He hangs up and just looks super distraught. Someone taps him on the shoulder and says, "My car is parked at West Oakland. Do you need a ride?" He agrees and they get off together. Little gesture, but it was uplifting to see someone volunteer for a stranger like that. I saw a police officer stop traffic to help a turtle safely cross a very busy intersection. He stopped his car, picked up the turtle and moved it to a marsh on the other side of the 4-lane intersection. I was imagining him being like a turtle crossing guard, but that other way was probably faster. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.